Hello, my name is Zachry Valentine, and today I'm going to treat you like dogs, and we're all going to learn something. Today I'm going to teach you the steps of classical conditioning and a theory that goes with it that I learned in my psychology class taught by John Eric Swinson III. To understand also, thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your speeches. Let's continue. To understand classical conditioning, you first have to understand who Ivan Pavlov was and his theory. So Pavlov was a Russian psychologist in the 1890s who really cared about learning and how it worked in the human brain. Now Pavlov set up an experiment called Pavlov's dogs. That might ring a bell, if you will, pun intended. And if that doesn't ring a bell, then the scene from The Office where Jim trains Dwight to want an Altoid every time he turns off his computer might remind you. Now I'm going to go through all 4 steps of classic conditioning and then a theory that goes along with it. So step 1. Introduction of the unconditioned stimulus. Now, the unconditioned stimulus is anything that you show to the subject that causes the subject to have an unconditioned response. In Pavlov's study, he would show dogs food, and the dog's unconditioned response was they would produce saliva. Now, the dogs didn't mean to produce saliva, they didn't make the choice to, so it's unconditioned. Step 2. Introduction of the neutral stimulus. Now, the neutral stimulus is anything that's exposed to the subject that causes the subject to do nothing. So in Pavlov's case, he would ring a bell. Now, the bell wouldn't cause the dogs to salivate because it's just a bell. They would act normal, so there was no conditioned response. Step 3. Combination of the neutral stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus. So in Pavlov's study, he would ring a bell and present the dogs food. This would cause the dogs to salivate. Now the dogs were obviously salivating because they smelled the food and not the bell. However, without realizing it, their brains would associate the bell with the food. Now this is where the actual classical conditioning happens. In our psychology textbook, Psychology for Everyday Life, they say that this is the most crucial step in the process. Dr. John Eric Swinson said that without this step, there's not really much to this whole theory in general. For more information on, in a second. So step 4, you've been Pavloved. Sorry. So after the conditioning, he could ring a bell and the dogs would salivate. That would turn the bell from a neutral stimulus into a conditioned stimulus because it would cause the dogs to salivate without there ever being food in the mixture. If it didn't work, then you would go back and redo it, and that would either mean that the process doesn't work or you didn't do it long enough. But in most cases, the dogs would be trained to salivate to the sound of a bell after about a week of the whole process. So a theory that goes along with this is stimulus generalization. This was brought up by Dr. John B. Watson. John B. Watson went through Pavlov's experiment and he trained a toddler to be terrified of a small white rat. But what he learned is you could show the toddler anything small, white, and hairy, and the toddler would become terrified and start crying. What this shows us is that your reaction to what becomes a conditioned stimulus could be done with something similar to the original neutral stimulus. So in Pavlov's case, if he rang a bell, the dogs would salivate. The next day, he could go in and bang on a pan, and they would still salivate because it's similar. This is important because Pavlov himself said, while you were experimenting, do not remain content with the surface of things. John B. Watson went further with his experimentation and learned a lot more. For more information on Pavlov, check out simplypsychology.org. And for more information on John B. Watson, check out verywellmind.com. So in a matter of 5 minutes or less, I've trained y'all to be afraid of the color blue. A little bit. Y'all would jump. Imagine how much y'all have been trained without realizing it in your day-to-day life. I challenge you to go out into the world and be aware when people are trying to Pavlov you. I thank you for listening to my speech. You've learned a little bit about the 4 steps of classical conditioning, as well as a theory that goes along with it, and I'm excited to hear the rest of your speeches. Thank you.